Alrighty, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started now. As people come in, they can just join us. As you can tell, I'm not Dr. Solo. He is out today, so I'm gonna be running this seminar. For those that don't know me or haven't seen my emails/newsletters, I'm Dave. I am the Startup Lab Coordinator as well as the Marketing Coordinator here at Andrews Innovation. So you might see me around campus taking pictures, gathering content for our different social media outlets, but also reaching out to you all if you are a Startup Lab Incubator member or an Accelerator member, which most of you at this point should be in our incubator, since we have done the Startup Lab seminars throughout the semester. This is our fourth one, and so we'll go ahead and get started. This is the Creating an MVP Startup Lab seminar. All right, so our next workshop is not until next year, February, so you have some time to work on your business concepts from now until February. I also know that you might be balancing end of year, end of semester activities such as finals, last minute assignments, so this will give you some time to finish up the semester, but also start looking into continue to develop your business plan and strategy. And I apologize if it keeps shutting off on me. I've been dealing with this throughout the setup. All right. Upcoming events include Thursday, we have our Startup Lab nights. Then on Friday, we have our Maker Lab workshop. And then next Tuesday will be our last event for the semester, which is our drone workshop. So if anyone is in a drone competition as a member of a team for the competition, please look forward to joining us for that event. Yes, go ahead. The flyer for next Tuesday's event will be coming out, I would say, around tomorrow. And so you'll have that. All right. So for Thursday's event, if you want to go ahead and RSVP, there's a code right there. We have 4 speakers, so it's going to be really engaging. Come listen to student entrepreneurs, your classmates, peers, and see what they're up to and what their business concepts and models are, and get inspired. Go on this slide. Okay. Got one more. You got it? All right. Then we also have our Maker Lab workshop. So this is going to be really vital for you if you are looking to go to MVP, which you'll know what that is after today. Spots are filling up very fast for these workshops, so if you are planning on coming, please RSVP. We have about 10 spots left.
Already on the list?
I'm sorry?
I think I'm already on the list.
Perfect. Good. We should be good. We have about 10 spots, so make sure if you're not signed up to get signed up. All right. Let's go ahead and review what we've done in past seminars. So you should have done a lean canvas model. If you came to one of the tests, you should know what this looks like. Or if you completed a makeup assignment, you should be good with this. But in your lean canvas, you should have identified the problem, key metrics, cost structure, a basic understanding of how your business will operate and work. So you should remember this. If you don't, we have a makeup assignment that you can complete to refresh your memory.
Sir,
Yes.
about the previous assignment that was there, the PDF does not seem to be matching up normally. Previously, there was, I already filled this out, but it seems like it's asking me to fill it out again. Is that the case? Because it's just like, it's the same.
Yeah, we can talk after this, and I can see what the issue may be.
Okay.
Let me connect this back. I'm going to try it a few times. All right, so today's focus will be focusing on the solution. And in terms with that, you're going to be making a minimal viable product. All right, anyone understands what a minimum viable product is? Maybe from last year's pitch competition, you might know.
I wasn't in a pitch audition, but I have an idea. Essentially, the minimal viable product
Yeah.
is the base level that your product can be like developed to, or essentially what it can provide on basics in order for it to be a successful like revenue generating like business essentially.
Very close. You're hitting on a lot of the key things. Ultimately, today we'll learn what it is, and it's very simple. It's not too complex. We'll send you home with what you need to know to kind of go out and experiment with it. But I have a good video that can kind of walk us through it. She's probably going to be more engaging than I could be, but we can also transition to the worksheet that we have after watching this video.
Could have been the world we lived in. Before it had 1.9 billion users per day, YouTube started as a video-based dating service, complete with the truly excellent catchphrase, tune in, hook up. If you look, you'll find tons of these quirky origin stories behind some of the most successful companies. But why? The reason they didn't flop is because they were willing to listen and fundamentally change their business when their original idea didn't meet the needs of their market. They were clever observers and nimble enough to pivot. Today, we'll look at the bare minimum we need to make an idea a business reality, also known as our minimum viable product. And we'll be ready to pivot if things fall flat. But don't worry, it'll be way easier than maneuvering a couch up a stairwell. I'm Anna Akana, and this is Crash Course Business Entrepreneurship. I don't know about you, but I tend to dream big. My vision for any of my projects is in vivid Technicolor. And it's great. I know where I want to go and pretty much what an idea will look like in the end. But especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, we want to take that vision of a product or service and break it up into smaller steps. Use the mantra, dream big, start small. We've done all the research we can in the idea stage. So now we have to take the risky leap to the next level. Thinking strategically, we want to focus our energy and our money on what creates value for customers, so they support us. The first iteration of our product or service should be our minimum viable product, the simplest version that will attract customers and maximize our learning as we launch our business. It's called an MVP for short, and there are 3 key parts to a good MVP. 1, it has enough value that customers want to start using it. 2, it hints at what we'll produce in the future to keep customers interested. And 3, it gives us feedback to learn from as we refine our product or service. Basically, the MVP is like a really useful first draft. Our goal is not perfection. And honestly, it's never going to be perfection in entrepreneurship. But more, the goal is to produce a great first offering that enables learning. Once we've launched a product or service, we can start gathering feedback and implementing changes so we can deliver more value to customers faster than competitors. Let's make our MVP the MVP. To see this iteration in action, let's go to the thought bubble. Your friend Gretchen is very into fashion, and the hot new trend is special occasion hats. Wedding fedoras, Valentine's Day fezzes, Canada Day bonnets, peak berets to wear on Wednesdays. It's so fetch. Gretchen has been making her own whimsical hats and wants to sell 2 of them on Etsy. She's never sold anything before, but she knows her cost per hat will include materials, basic marketing artwork, shipping, and her time. After doing a bunch of math, with some help from her friend Kevin G, and scoping out the competition, she plans on selling each hat for $28. They're not the cheapest on the market, but not the most expensive either. These 2 hats are good representations of her skill and designs. They're already popular with her friends, and Etsy allows lots of communication between buyers and sellers, including reviews and customization requests. So with confidence that these 2 hats are her minimum viable product, she takes the risk to post them. Gretchen gets feedback through comments and reviews, and she notices that customers only seem to buy only one of her hats and wish it had more customization options, like veils, ribbons, or feathers. She continues offering both hats, even though only one is selling, and she ignores customer requests because they're uninformed suggestions, don't speak to her creative sensibilities. Soon, her Etsy profile is a ghost town. Even though she had a solid MVP, she didn't learn from it. So even though hats are everywhere, no one is wearing Gretchen's. Thanks, Thought Bubble. To make an effective MVP and turn it into a successful business, it's important to put customers front and center and think about people having an experience. In buzzword lingo, this is applying a human-centered approach to design thinking. The good news is, all the entrepreneurial thinking we've been doing so far is human-centered. We're all humans, to the best of my knowledge, and we all have small wishes about products and services that could make our days a little easier. Like wishing there was already a coaster on the bottom of every cup, or that we could somehow reuse our favorite notebook forever. Those passions, complaints, and nagging, I can do better than that, feelings from our egos give us the seeds of ideas. Plus, we consider the jobs, pains, and gains of our customers to make sure our ideas have value. Doesn't get much more human-centered than that. Design thinking experts emphasize that coming up with a good idea isn't a linear process. It's a jumble of loops that includes steps like finding problems, brainstorming solutions, prototyping, testing, getting feedback, and making changes. And I know Crash Course Business Entrepreneurship has been teaching these concepts in a pretty linear way, but entrepreneurship totally is not a linear process. Every entrepreneur comes to the table with different knowledge, skills, and expertise. Sometimes we recognize an idea, but it takes years to take the financial risks to start a business. Or we never do anything with the idea at all. When it comes to sketching out all the details of our business, we have different interests too. Someone whose passion is marketing may have cool branding, but they aren't excited about choosing a legal structure. Or an accountant may start thinking about the costs of their future business before investigating the competition. So they have to circle back. Everyone's starting point can be different. But we want to stay focused on a human-centered approach to design thinking as we create any product or service, especially our MVP. So in rural India and Bangladesh, innovators came up with the idea of a smart bangle, a water-resistant plastic bracelet that gives important pregnancy info twice a week for 10 months without needing to be charged. The bangle also monitors carbon monoxide, a gas that we can't see or smell but is extremely toxic if it builds up in our blood. The bangle alerts the wearer when they're exposed to an unhealthy level of carbon monoxide, like possibly when they're cooking over wood-burning stoves. If the entrepreneurs hadn't talked to the women they were trying to help, they might have designed a culturally insensitive wearable, rather than something that matches the patterns, colors, and cultural nuance of jewelry in India. If nobody wanted to wear the bangle, it wouldn't help. You might assume that all successful entrepreneurs have this process down. They're changing the world, making money, and living the dream, right? But we all have biases and limitations, and big mistakes happen. Maybe not enough research or testing was done, or there was an oversight. For example, the most common crash test dummy was designed around a statistically average male body, from height and weight to muscle distribution. So cars and seat belts have historically been much less safe for people whose bodies are not like that. Power tools are easier to hold if your hand is a larger size, and personal protective equipment like safety goggles and body armor doesn't always come in the sizes that people need. I can't even get pants that fit right. And this unfortunately happens a lot across medicine too. Like the dosage of the morning after contraceptive pill is barely effective in people who weigh more than 165 pounds. So design thinking is complicated, especially when it comes to health and safety. And it takes a lot of work to make a thoughtful MVP and consider all the different types of people who might use it. But no matter how well researched or user-friendly your MVP is, people just might not want it. That feeling stinks as a new entrepreneur. But all is not lost. Instead of burning everything to the ground, you might be able to pivot. That's the business way of saying make a big change to a product or service based on customer feedback because they don't like or need it. In fact, many of the brands we know and love, or at least use today, were born from pivots. Take Instagram, for example, which started as Bourbon, a check-in / gaming / planning / photo sharing app named after alcohol. It was a lot, and it was not popular. But instead of drowning their sorrows in Jim Beam and quitting, the founders used their app analytics to see how people were using Bourbon. No one cared about the check-in or gaming features, but they loved to share photos. And thus, Instagram was born. Simple, intuitive, and now with over 1 billion users. The key to a good pivot is listening. As you test your MVP, are you paying attention to what your customers are telling you? You may uncover a job, pain, or gain that you didn't know about before. Then the question becomes, can you change? Change is hard. It's easy to think you can handle it before you've gone through the emotional roller coaster of a new entrepreneurship venture. Of course I'm able to adapt. I am super flexible, and I love hearing other people's ideas. But really, listening to feedback can be rough. And it's easy to disregard useful feedback as worthless because you think you know best. This business idea is my baby. I spent all this time listening and working and making this thing that you said you wanted, so why don't you love it? Huh? How dare you? This kind of thinking can mean the death of a fledgling or even a mature business. The best thing for your idea is to have a critical eye and a hard heart. Pay attention to what customers are using and let go of what isn't serving them. And it's so important to get feedback early on. Even though you've still put in hard work, time, and money into an idea, it'll be easier to pivot when you're less attached. You know, I really thought the cat waterbed was a good idea, but I guess it's better to switch things up now before I paid to mass produce them. Oh yeah, claws. No, yeah, now that makes sense. The bottom line is, be flexible. You want your minimum viable product to draw in customers who provide lots of feedback so you can adapt. And if you need to, pivot. Figure out what parts of your idea people like and use, and focus on them. Next time, we'll talk more detailed strategies for getting this product feedback out of your customers.
Okay, I think we learned a lot from that video. Definitely will makes it very understandable what an MVP is. It's putting your product out there and getting an opinion off of people. You really want to see if your product's going to work, or maybe aspects of your product, of your business concept, seeing if this sticks to the community audience that you identified a few seminars ago. All right, so we'll look at what is a minimum viable product, the types of an MVP, what is the difference between an MVP and a prototype. We'll give examples of MVPs and why they're like the key first step to our larger vision. And then we'll develop an MVP, and then I'll give you time to work on your own MVP development. Cool. So what is an MVP? So basically the first draft, like you heard in that video, it's your first concept / thing that you're putting out there to get in front of your customer base. So it's not quite the finalized version, and it only offers, oh, there it goes again. It only offers essential functionality. And then it's viable, so it's functional, it solves a problem for customers. So it's focused on experiment on one variable, not too complex, like how you heard the example of Instagram. They tried to do a lot of things. They tried to do games, they tried to do videos, pictures, but in reality, when they did all that, only one or two things stuck. So identify what things are gonna stick and what's the thing that's gonna drive your business. Because you can always expand your business at a later stage, but what's really gonna catch your business on fire and get it in front of a lot of different people that want and that are willing to pay for that service. And then it's also the smallest amount of effort to learn. Once you do this, you're going to be able to get a lot of feedback because people are going to tell you what they want and what they don't want. And once again, it's the start of a process. So if you make this and you're like, this is what I really want to do with this business, and then someone's like, hey, I really don't see myself using it in the future or see myself purchasing it, then you might get disappointed, but just know that this is a process. You're going to get different types of feedback, and all types of feedback is good feedback because it can show you the type of audience that you're willing to attract as well as the type of product that you're willing to have and adapt. All right, so the goals of the MVP process, problem validation, making sure that the problem that you identified is actually the problem that people are having. You know, an example of this, I'll later use it, but Amazon, right? We wanted the convenience. We wanted to make sure that something was to get delivered to our house. So we wanted something convenient. We didn't want to leave our houses to go get it. So that's kind of how Amazon was developed. through not just everything, but start off with one thing, which grew to many things. Okay, put this back on the screen. It doesn't like me today for some reason. And then you're also confirming customers' priorities. What do they want? What do they want to see from your product? So they gave you the initial feedback from your last homework assignment when you went out and interviewed different customers. And then now that you're taking those interviews, you're taking that feedback, you're putting it into your MVP, and you're showing that to the customer again. Be like, hey, you told me that you wanted, let's say, let's say I did t-shirts, right? You wanted me to do a green t-shirt. Well, here's a green t-shirt. Is this the type of t-shirt you wanted? And then you confirm what they said. And then if they said, no, I wanted a green t-shirt with like stripes on it, and you're like, all right, let me go back and develop it. So basically, you're putting back in front of the customer what they initially gave you. All right, and then you're also doing experimentation for iteration. And so obviously, you're going to be doing different iterations of these MVPs, tweaking it, showing it back to the customer until you get it right. And once you get it right, you'll understand, and you'll be able to continue to enhance that product and get it ready to be fully market testable. And then once again, you're going to keep gathering actual customer feedback. You don't want to hear the customer say, "Oh yeah, that's good," or "I like it." You want to say, "Okay, why do you like it? Why do you think it's good? When would you use it? When would you want to see people invest in it?" Things like that. You want to give more than a one-word answer or one-word feedback. You really want to put it out there and gain things that you can take and put back into your product and service. So there's different types of MVPs. So there's the fake door MVP, which is a validated demand. So how that works is it measures real interest before building the product. So it could look like you're creating a landing page or an ad or something that prompts people to really want to invest in it. So what that can look like is if you have like a clothing line, I keep using that example, but you can have a few different designs and be like putting an ad on Facebook or Instagram and say, pre-order now. Because you don't know if people are actually going to want to buy it or not. But if you say pre-order now, you'll see all 50 people signed up to buy this if I actually do make it. So you already have something to validate, some type of thing that you can look, engage, and see, are people willing to click, sign up, or engage in my business concept or idea. And then it's also best for early validation of demand with minimal effort or investment. So you're not actually putting in that much work just because you haven't seen if it's worth the work or effort to put in. Then we also have the concierge MVP, which is a manually stimulated service, and then it also validates core values. And so how it works is if you can deliver the service manually for a handful of others rather than building systems. So examples may be manually matching like job candidates, custom shopping recommendations done by hand or hand-built reports. And so doing the work at a minimal scale level. And then what you'll learn from that is what customers really want and what workflows matter. And so if you're designing a process for someone, understanding how that process is really going to be working and if that's going to actually benefit the customer that's paying you for your service. And then also the single feature, okay. This is the last one is going to be single feature MVP. What the single feature MVP is to validate the most important feature that defines your product's value. So you only build one essential feature and release it to early testers. So what you'll learn is like a core functionality service, which solves a real problem. And then also what you'll learn is the feature intuitive and valuable enough to bring the users back, so getting repeat customers. It's best for product ideas with many potential features, but one critical differentiator that makes your product stand out. So ultimately, you want to have entire, like I keep using clothes just because that's what I know. You might want to have a whole wardrobe of options for people to purchase, but if only your t-shirts are standing out, then just stick to your t-shirts and push that out there. Get a bunch of customers, validate it, and then start growing your business from there. And so an example of this could be like a Spotify playlist feature, right? So Spotify does music, they do podcasts, but they really wanted to focus on what people are going to actually use and need. And so that was like a playlist. So you can go and you can view other people's playlists on Spotify. You can listen to other people's interests or whatnot. You can even create your own. And then after that, they branch off into the podcast, into different things, advertisements, things of that sort. So once they gain an audience for it, that's when they can branch off with their business concepts and ideas. All right, we'll look at an MVP versus a prototype. For an MVP, the goal is to test a real product with early adopters to validate key assumptions. And so that is very different from the prototype, which is to just demonstrate and test ideas. You're actually going to be putting that idea in front of other people and seeing whether or not this is going to solve the issue that they gave you or they identified. The functionality of it is functional for core features only for an MVP. So actually being able to test what the market is wanting, whereas a prototype may not be functional or partially functional for like an idea. You would do a prototype. Yeah, it could be. They set this up for me, and they just said this is how it works. But yes, whereas a prototype may not be functional, or you're developing different things that could eventually stick. Really, what you're aiming for an MVP is something that's going to be closely identifiable to what that customer wanted. And so the audience is real target customers, whereas a prototype, the audience is like an internal team or stakeholders. Basically, people that aren't actually going to be the ones investing in it. They're the ones that are going to be just gauging ideas and seeing what can stick. And so that's the difference. So the MVP is going in front of people that weren't a part of your team, weren't a part of the initial stages of creating that business market or idea, but they can validate that. So an MVP example is Amazon. So there's the initial question, what are customers willing to buy online? So what it started out as is one product type, tested demand, which was books. So, and that's how they started with just selling books out of a garage on a completely basic website. And then from there, they learned a lot of different things. So there's a strong demand for online book sales, which was number one. And then they discovered demand for online shopping options, which is number two. So it could start off with books, but you see if they tried to do everything at once, they might not have been as successful as they were with just one product, which was books. Very strangely enough, a few years ago, they stopped doing rental books on Amazon. And so I'm like, okay, so they decided to get away from what really started their business. And see, that shows you that a business can completely flip on its head what they end up doing and how they continue to stay relevant and successful. Because they probably have to find new ways to pivot, like you learned in that video, to keep their business relevant, to stay with the current market. Another example is Zappos, which was how would customers purchase shoes online. And so it was a simple WordPress website listing shoes for sale. And so basically somebody went into a local store, which was a Sears at the time, and all they did was take pictures of the products at Sears and they would post it on their own website. So there was no warehouse, there was no inventory, there was not anything. It was just basically like, hey, I went and took a picture of a pair of shoes at Sears and I posted it online on my own business. And when someone would place that order, I would just go buy the pair of shoes from Sears and then sell it at a higher cost on my own business. And so they confirmed that customers were going to purchase shoes online at a higher price at the conveniency. And then also they were able to identify a need for a return process, which at that point was not determined or was not established. So it ended up leading to some beneficial things for their business. All right, now you're going to be developing your own MVP. So you're going to be identifying core features. So you got to remember, you created a feature list during the compelling value proposition workshop. So what you'll want to do is, if you can recall that workshop, you want to place each of those features into the proper quadrant of the grid to the right. And so you definitely want to remember that you want to aim to be this top right square right here, where it's a high impact but low effort in terms of the work that you're putting in and the results that you want to see, and wanting to see the features that you identified where they would fall in. Definitely don't want to be on the high effort, low impact square. So if you can be around this area, you know, maybe this area in terms of how low the effort is and maybe how much impact you're getting, you really want to identify those things. And so when you're using your MVP, you really want to recall the problem. So what pain points have you identified? Recall the customers. What customer segment are you targeting? How do they currently address the problem? And then you want to set your first goal. So define the first thing you need to learn or validate from your customers. And then you want to run iterative experiments. You want to design an MVP and test it. Use your customer response data to revise and further develop your MVP until it's a validated product. And this is not just linear. This could be an entire circle. You could be doing this over and over again until you find what clicks. You know, just like in the video, you know, have a open mindset to it. Don't be closed off. Don't be stubborn and say, hey, no, this is what my business is going to be, and I'm not going to change it regardless of who says it's not going to work. You know, just because someone says, hey, you might also want to think about doing this, doesn't mean completely changing your idea. It just means adapting it. Or if you're hearing the same things from the same people, if you're hearing the same thing from different people, you can definitely be understanding that's a trend or that's a thing that they want to see be different. And so the next steps are going to be to continue your MVP. So determine which assumptions to validate first and determine which features to include. And then you also want to plan your first experiments. You want to outline ways to test your MVP and identify metrics to test success. And so you have until now, until February 3rd, to do all these things, to test your MVP, to kind of go and engage the customers that you're wanting to target, to put in a lot of effort in this, because in February, we're going to do MVP validation. Once your MVP is validated, that's when you're going to move on into the next thing, which is going to be preparing for the pitch competition, which hopefully all the incubator members that are in here are planning on doing. And so you have the time now until February to do this. You know, we said this is the end of the semester, however, there's going to be time between the semesters, and also in January for you to go ahead and do it. So I'm a person where I like to hold people to a standard, and if you want to see your business idea flourish, you got to put the work and effort in now, and there's no time better than now. Any questions before I go back a slide and then have you all start kind of working on this worksheet? Okay. Then we'll go ahead and maybe give it like, I don't know, 10 more minutes for you to work on this, get a basic idea, and then we can call it a seminar. All right? And then I can come around if anyone has any questions. This thing might come off the screen, but everything that I have on the board is on this worksheet, and you can find the worksheet if you don't have it in the back of the room. After about 10 more minutes, I'll go ahead and I'll end the seminar. We have a few more minutes left. As long as you all signed in, if anyone needs a co-curricular credit, we will get it to you. Just as long as everyone's signed in. We have Denise that might come around, take some pictures. So if you have completed something on the worksheet, hold it up, get a picture taken, and then just stay tuned for our next upcoming events. We have a really good, cool startup lab night once again, so please make sure to check that out, as well as our last few events before the end of the semester. We wish everyone a good end of the semester with your finals, and then we'll see you back for our next one in February.